This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight is a regular on the show and no stranger to most of you, Dr. Vladimir Kozin from Moscow. We're going to be talking about uh, Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov spoke at the United Nations Security Council because Russia is chairing the Security Council for this month of April.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of scandal, in my opinion, surrounding the United States Security Council and how it's treating Russia and China, by the way. So we'll talk about the speech that he gave, which I think was, wow, so straightforward and powerful. And then we're going to talk about the situation in Ukraine. Apparently, from various sources, including a general in the army and articles in the American press, it's not going very well. So we'll talk about that. But first, I want to welcome back my dear friend, Vladimir Kozin.
Well, thank you very much, Regis. And I also greet the esteemed audience, wherever you live.
All right. So, first of all, your general impressions of Sergey Lavrov's speech at the United Nations Security Council. What did you think about it?
Yes, I'm very positive. It's not a kind of nice words simply because Sergey Lavrov was my faculty mate at MGIMO University, and we have been at the same called academic group number 10. But actually, when I examined his address to the UN Security Council, yes, I realized that it is one of the best speeches he has ever produced in the capacity of the foreign minister of the Russian Federation. So he actually touched upon several issues, and I cataloged roughly six of them that are of great importance, not only for the Russian Federation, but for the rest of the world. Number one is that he tried to avoid Western majority in the world, the term that was used very frequently on the globe in many speeches and research papers, etc. But he justifiably referred to such term as Western minority, amounting 1 billion people living in NATO countries, now 31, and in the European Union, numbering 27 nations. You know, just everybody knows that sometimes it's not the same numbers, the same states that are included in both organizations I said, the EU and NATO alliance, because some of them are NATO member states, but not European member states like Turkey, and the UK just withdraw from the European Union, but still it's in NATO community. The second idea Sergey Lavrov put forward during the session, during the meeting, that he actually canceled the rules-based order created by NATO and the European Union member states, instead of sticking to a much wider term called international law and the United Nations Charter. Sergey Lavrov also stressed that the epoch of unilateralism headed by the United States of America is over, and it should be based on multilateralism pattern. And the most interesting fact that the majority of the world population and member states is against the second option, multilateralism, instead of unilateralism. The third idea that was articulated that he advocated the uh, the uh, the elimination of NATO dominance in the world, and excluded the possibility that North Atlantic Treaty Organization should be a dominant military and political organization all over the world. There will be no bosses and no slaves. All nations are considered equal. They have only one voice, irrespective of their territories and the number of population and gross domestic output. The idea number four is that he urged not to violate the UN Charter anymore, because in many cases, NATO member states, on one hand, advocated the existence and the validity of the UN Charter, but on the other hand, violated it under dubious pretexts and excusations. Sergey Lavrov also said that there should not be any subjugation of the United Nations organization, like NATO or the European Union or any other military and regional alliances. The next idea that was popped up by him was that he spoke in favor of the further enlargement of the UN Security Council, currently consisting of 15 member states, 15 nations, by inviting the states not represented widely from African countries, from Asia, from Central and Latin American countries as well. And point number six, he touched upon the developments in Ukraine, naturally, and he was resolutely in favor of the cessation of cancellation of a combined Ukrainian slash NATO armed aggression against the Russian Federation, and the end of attacks against Russian populated 5 territories that have recently, last October, joined the Russian Federation absolutely voluntarily, without any intimidation, without any threats, etc., by themselves, according to their will, openly declared in the respective 5 referenda, multiple referendum, or sometimes people use referendums, but it doesn't matter, referenda or referendums. Well, that's it. That's it, Regis, and I think that his speech has been already published, I think, in the records of the United Nations official documents. If not, people can find it in Russian, original language, and in English, and in some other foreign languages at the internet website of the Russian Foreign Ministry. Besides Russian and English, they usually translate important speeches and documents in French, German, Spanish, Chinese, and Arabic. Yes, Regis, now it's your turn.
Well, I was really impressed as well with his speech. I think he's a very gifted diplomat, and I think he is without peer right now on the global stage. He mentioned a number of things, but I think in every one of the points you mentioned, when he talks about the West, he did come out once and said the United States and its Western partners, but it's the United States that's been behind all of this. It's the United States that has ruined the United Nations with its rules based order, its gross violation of the UN Charter and international law. He pointed that out.
Mhm.
And I think, as you said, this was not just a message for the Russian people, it was a message in New York City to the United States of America, to Joseph Biden and his administration, without doubt, and to NATO and the European Union. He couldn't have been clearer. Now, there was some more United States orchestrated shenanigans, Vladimir. They did not allow Lavrov's press contingent to get visas to come to the United Nations.
Mhm.
As of right now, I don't think they were allowed. And Lavrov promised a loud and clear message that the United States would not forget. What are your comments on that?
Well, Regis, this definitely unfriendly gesture and suffocation of the freedom of speech, suffocation of freedom of disseminating ideas and thoughts, including by mass media people. Look, well, first of all, the US Embassy based in Moscow uh, just delayed visa issue to the pool of Russian newsmen correspondents that could have gone together with Sergey Lavrov, definitely on a separate plane. It's not a problem, to the New York City to cover the developments at this international organization. But it was a very, just it's not like a joking gesture, but a kind of mental torture, I think, a kind of uh, dishonesty to give a warning to the Russian Foreign Ministry in Moscow that the United States of America is ready to issue the respective visas to Russian newsmen going to the United States to attend the United Nations deliberations, just at the same moment when Lavrov's and other planes with the Russian delegation lift off and vanished in the sky of Moscow in the direction to the New York City. So it was too late. Why not to give earlier? It's a handful of persons known to everybody. Why? Simply they would like to, the American chieftains in the State Department simply decided not to let people know what Lavrov is thinking, what he is saying, what is going to visit and to say to UN officials like the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, etc., etc. Because we have two correspondents in New York City, Bogdanov and Davidov, if I'm not mistaken, a TV correspondent, one TASS correspondent. But that's actually not enough because we have plenty of national channels, TV channels, and radio stations in Moscow, and federal newspapers, still very popular, of different thoughts and ideas. So it's very bad phenomenon. It's a very bad example. Well, we will respond. I don't know in what way, but Russian officials from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs already said that we will try to find a responsive step to answer to such unfriendly gesture. And Regis, one more remark from myself, though you have not asked me, but also the news came from the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. Ambassador of Russia, Anatoly Antonov, lamented that the U.S. officials have not permitted the embassy staff members to lay the wreath at the Arlington Cemetery. Am I right to pronouncing this?
Yes.
Arlington Cemetery, military cemetery, right?
Right.
Just to play the wreath with at the tombs of the American soldiers and officers who died and who met in April 1945 on the Elbe River in Germany, a little bit earlier than the Second World War just ended in Europe on the 8th of May, sorry, and in Russia we celebrated on the 9th of May. Yes, it happened on the 9th of May, 1945. So we met on Elbe River, on the banks of the Elbe River in Germany, because we are fighting against the same enemy, neo-Nazism, German Nazism. But see, history is out laughing nowadays that the United States of America, instead of denouncing neo-Nazi in Ukraine, just supporting them against us. So it's a U-turn. It's a 180 degrees turn from the positive factor when we were allies during the Second World War and now became just die-hard enemies in April 2023. Regis?
Yeah. And talking about Ukraine, Lavrov did say this is not a war with Ukraine, about Ukraine. It's really a war with Russia. And everybody
Yes.
knows that now. It's pretty clear to
Yeah.
everybody. So I want to ask your opinion because I read 3 articles today.
Mhm.
One of them from Russia that said a Ukrainian general, he's a Sergey Melnik, he
Mhm.
said Kiev needs up to 6 times more troops and firepower for its
Mhm.
counteroffensive to succeed. He said we need more troops, ammunition, and equipment to continue its military conflict with Moscow. Do you
Yeah.
think that that's a fact? Do you think that this is just fake news? Because others have been reporting the same thing as well, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. But what about this General Melnik?
Yeah. Well, the problem is that the current Ukrainian armed forces are very weak. It's their morale is very low. People do not want to fight. They do not understand what for they are fighting. Against the Russian Federation, its immediate neighbor, and against Russians, uh, according to their nationality, but they were previously Ukrainian citizens and lived in Donbass, in Zaporozhye, in Kherson, and on the Crimean Peninsula. They don't understand. And Ukrainians are sick and tired of this aggression they started, and the aggression that was initiated by NATO alliance purposefully against the Russian Federation. There was not any rationality behind this military drive against Donbass and other republics or regions in Ukraine. And instead of just canceling this kind of attacks and recognizing that both two republics in Donbass, Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, then Crimean Republic, are historic lands of the Russian Empire. Recently, we celebrated the 240th anniversary of the accession of Crimean Peninsula to the Russian Empire. You're right. So instead of recognizing this fact and giving people a chance to live in another place where Russian language will be honored, culture norms will be protected, then religious believers will be also honored and supported, while family ties will be maintained, etc., etc. Zelensky started a large-scale aggression. Initially, it was a proxy war because Ukraine was alone. But as soon as NATO member states started pouring deadly weapons to the Ukrainian armed forces, it became a combination, a joint military aggression of Ukraine plus NATO member states together against the Russian Federation, but not against Donbass or southern regions of the former Ukraine. Because since October last year, 4 new territories joined the Russian Federation. Crimea joined nearly 9 years ago in 2014. But in 2022, in October, these 4 regions joined the Russian Federation and became the same equal subjects or the same equal territories we are having inside the huge Russian Federation territory. So simply to recognize it, because if we put a simple question, I mean, Zelensky and his pals in Kiev, do people in all 5 new territories wish to live inside the Russian Federation or in Ukraine? The answer will be no. We would like to live in Russia, not in Ukraine. And this is very important factor. If many people are not going to live inside your land called Ukraine, you should leave them absolutely. By the way, on the basis of the international law enshrined at the UN Charter, I mean, the right for self-determination, Self-determination has been confirmed by all these five territories or republics or regions, doesn't matter how you call them, has been confirmed during officially conducted referenda or referendums, respective, in each republic separately. So I think that it was a very highly demanding message from Sergey Lavrov and concerning the Ukrainian developments, because what Vladimir Zelensky and his very limited group of people, a number of oligarchs, a number of military men, top brass, just have secured for Ukraine? Nothing. The territory is crumbling, is disintegrating. The economy is in a very poor position. Military expenditures enlarged by 640%. I repeat, 640%. It's not a Russian calculation. It's a figure that recently appeared in the documents released by SIPRI, Stockholm Peace Research Institute, very famous for calculating world military expenditures. And Ukraine was specifically mentioned in the results. So, and I don't understand. Well, today, a famous Russian TV channel called Patriot asked me a question. If a counteroffensive of Ukraine collapses, Ukrainian armed forces will not win, they will lose. What will happen with the elections in the United States of America? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I answered this Patriot TV station in the following way. Joseph Biden and Democratic Party of the United States of America will lose the next presidential election. Lose in favor of a Republican nominee, a Republican candidate. It doesn't matter right now who would be selected, either Mr. Trump or any other person from the GOP, gross old party, right? Republicans. Yes, it will change the political perspective in the United States of America, as well as deliver a very severe political and military blow to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, will undermine the morale and superiority played widely by that alliance. And it will be a negative setback for Ukraine itself. It will be either disintegrated itself, and Hungary and Poland will grab a part of western part of Ukraine, where belong to Austria-Hungary Emperor or Rzecz Pospolita in Poland. So, and inevitably, Vladimir Zelensky his end will be very, very poor. Sentenced to death or to live on any Indian Ocean island comfortably. But is it a good final end, the good final fate for any person to be expelled from his country for wrongdoings, for betrayal, for creating a cul-de-sac, a deadlock for Ukraine. Once upon a time, very rich, very good country, extremely positive, with a nice population, nice culture, nice climate, all natural wealth were in their hands, industry, agriculture, flourishing. What they have done, Mamma mia, incredible, Regis.
Well, a couple of points. You mentioned Zelensky and his crowd. Uh, it's been talked about a great deal about the corruption in Ukraine is unbelievable, unmatched anywhere in the world at all top levels. Now, Seymour Hersh got an
Yeah.
insider tip that Zelensky and some oligarchs and maybe top military officials have skimmed off $400 million in the last year. And this is incredible. And this was reported in the United States as well.
Mhm.
Even though Seymour Hersh is banned from most publications, it did get out there. And the American people, they need to know this. So the other point that you mentioned was the upcoming American election. Joe Biden announced today, I guess
Yeah.
it was today or yesterday, he is going to run, but
Mhm.
82% of the American people don't want him to run anymore. The article,
Certainly.
the article in Politico said um, people feel he doesn't have the stamina. Well, he's falling down, going up and down stairs. He falls off his bicycle. He has a hard time to move. And he's also suffering from some advanced stages of dementia, which many doctors and psychiatrists have pointed out. He doesn't have it all there. He's made stupid errors. And speaking off the cuff, he's making no sense, and people are laughing at him. They call it gaffes. Well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son, the nephew of John Kennedy and the son of Robert Kennedy Sr., his father,
Mhm.
has declared he's running against Biden. Now, the speculation over here is going wild because Kennedy will obviously have a great deal of support on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, because he's addressing all of the problems that America is facing at home and abroad. And I don't know if Biden's handlers are going to hide him away again in his basement so that he won't go out and be in front of the American public except where there's favorable crowds. But people are even wondering whether he will join the debate against in the Democratic primaries against Robert Kennedy, who's an intelligent man, very intelligent, a lawyer.
Yeah.
Biden will be embarrassed in front of the entire country.
Yeah.
And so,
Regis, excuse me. Yes, I will never recommend Mr. Joseph Biden to take part in any election debates with anybody else in the United States. He will be outlaughed. When today I've seen on TV his announcement that he will run for the second term, only a very small sentence was video recorded, but all the text he was given by speechwriters was 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 shown on the screen as a sentence, not through his voice of Mr. Joseph Biden. He is incredibly poor. Joseph, go to the sofa, relax, stay at home, be with your family. You're a very old guy. leave Americans without you. Reggie, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting to watch what unfolds now, not only in the United States, but because the election is going to be front and center now. It already is. Uh, and that's going to have an impact on what's happening in the world. The rest of the world is going to be watching and wondering, who is it going to be? Will it be Biden again? Will it be Trump again? Will it be Robert Kennedy Jr.? Uh, it's going to have an impact not only on that, but on the war in Ukraine. Now, this was reported in Politico. It said Ukraine was given Afghanistan style warning by the United States. And according to Politico, Washington has urged Kiev not to spread its troops too thin or overextend its ambitions. And this is what Biden reportedly told the Afghan president Ashraf Ghani at some point before the United States pulled out suddenly and quickly from Afghanistan and the Taliban took over. And so people now are starting to wonder, given the comments by Ukrainian generals, Ukrainian advisors to Zelensky over the last months, that they're failing. Their military is failing, as you mentioned. And I just am wondering how long the United States can continue printing billions of dollars to give to Ukraine in a losing effort. As we're talking about this, what this is going to do, and then you mentioned it, to the reputation of the United States and NATO and the EU is destroy it. It will destroy not only the reputation of their economy, it's destroying their influence around the world. And the only thing that the United States has, using its vassals in NATO and the EU, is military force and color revolutions and the threat of sanctions. That's it. They don't have any other tools to engage in diplomacy. Now, there's another article in the Washington Post, and the Washington Post now has been coming out with little bits of truth here and there. And it said that the United States controls Ukrainian operations, and that the United States told Kiev, do not attempt to strike at Moscow, at St. Petersburg, because the United States, according to insiders, were afraid that this would trigger the nuclear war. Your thoughts on that, Vladimir?
Yes, Regis, it's quite possible. It's quite possible because we will never tolerate if Kiev attacks Moscow or St. Petersburg or any other big cities. And there are voices in my country to create a kind of folks militia besides a police force, a folks militia and folks population patrol forces in regions bordering Ukraine, right, from other directions. And we will not tolerate this kind of thing. That is a much better option for NATO and for Ukrainian leaders to accept all Russia's preconditions to end the war, to recognize all five territories we have been talking about as the legal area, political, administratively, financially, etc., as a part of Russia for good, forever. The pledge from Kiev not to join NATO alliance but not like NATO Secretary General Mr. Jens Stoltenberg again asked Ukraine to join the alliance, demanded even when the victory will be on your side, he said, applying to Zelensky and Zelensky's leadership. No, we will close the upcoming developments very closely, very closely. Ukraine doesn't have air power. Ukraine doesn't have navy in the Black Sea, destroyed, or in Azov Sea, it became Russian Sea completely. Ukraine doesn't have enough main battle tanks. Ukraine doesn't have anti-aircraft defense systems, anti-missile systems up to substantial quality and quantity. Tremendous human losses inside armed forces of Ukraine. And there will be more. Is it the nice price for what Ukraine has got up to now, or what Ukraine will get in the immediate future? Nothing. Zero. Zero option. Zero. Nothing. Absolutely. Just smoke from cigarette. So, and the best solution is to stop aggression against the Russian Federation. My words are applied to Kiev, to Washington, London, Paris, etc., etc., to all NATO countries and to all European Union countries. That actually has become a kind of second military alliance in the world, supporting NATO alliance. And one more remark towards self-nomination of Joseph Biden to run for the second term as a president. I don't like that people are laughing when he stumbles in the stairs going to the airplane, or just fell down from the bike, from bicycles. I don't like. He's an old man. We could also just fell down and collapse somewhere in the street when we are getting older and older. It's not a proper factory to laugh at. But what I'm personally care and send a very honest, a very important message to the outside world and to the Russian Federation and to the Ukrainians and to the United States of America. That Joseph Biden, it doesn't matter how fragile he is number one in the United States responsible to press nuclear button start, lift off. I mean, nuclear missiles, nuclear forces. He can unilaterally, upon his discretion, to use nuclear weapons against any enemy the United States so desires. That is very dangerous. And if he wins the next presidential election, God forbids, this threat of using nukes at the discretion, at the will of a ill person, an old daddy, is very dangerous. Is very dangerous, rather more dangerous than any political whispers and statements made by academics, from academic community, from politicians, from lawmakers, etc., etc. because it's a real threat, and we cannot forget about such a gloomy possibility of Armageddon type. Regis?
Well, Vladimir, I have one more question, and a brief answer is really all that's needed. It's been reported, but not confirmed until just recently, apparently, that Russia used, I think it's Kinzhal missile to
Kinjal.
Kinzhal,
Kinjal. Kinjal.
to
Dagger.
destroy
Dagger in English.
an
Kinjal, it
underground
means dagger in English.
dagger.
Dagger in English,
Yeah.
right. Go ahead.
So it's been reported and not confirmed until just recently that this missile struck this underground bunker, deep underground, and eliminated 300 top commanders, advisors from United States and other countries. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I've heard the same kind of news. And this news is not for the first time. Previously, at the beginning of the special military operation, the same missile called Kinjal or dagger in English just penetrated into a highly protected, buried deep in the ground, a kind of ammunition depot, ammunition collecting point, and exploded very easily because having a huge hypersonic speed, it is capable to penetrate without any explosives, without any high explosives on board, but using kinetic power to penetrate deep into concrete, into ground, into the earth, deep inside the highly protected facilities, military facilities, command and control systems, and warehouses with packs of ammunition, etc. And after penetrating, it explodes inside. Normal, conventional high explosives. But at the same time, Kinjal or dagger has a possibility to carry nuclear tipped warhead. It's not a problem. But we are using, and we have used several times already, and we do not use such missiles frequently because they are very wealthy and very expensive for us. And we just saving them for more strategic tasks than simply to destroy a railroad or just a bridge or over the river. Well, for that purpose, we have much less expensive devices. But naturally, we are using new types of weapons. Yesterday, by the way, there was official announcement, official, not rumors, that Russian newly born tanks called Armata in Russian, or a designation is AT, like Alpha Tango 14, 1-4. It's a military designation of this tank, and Armata is a colloquial name. They have already been sent to the battlefield in Ukraine from our side, but they have not been engaged in the tank or other battles involving tanks. But they are started sharing distant, far away position and facilities of the enemy, far away, more than 6 kilometers from the position, from the location of Armata, without any mistakes. One shot, one piece tank, armored personnel carrier, command and control center will be eliminated completely. Extremely accurate. It's actually not artillery shells, but rockets, small rockets, guided using navigational system and other electronic devices. We are using a lot of drones, like anti-tank killers. Last Sunday, on the Russian TV, federal TV channel number 1, we have seen Leopard 2 as German famous tank they supplied to the armed forces of Ukraine. His turret, tank turret, was lying away from the main body of Leopard 2, Leopard 2, aus Federal Republic of Germany, from Germany. Tremendous precision, tremendous power. It doesn't matter how many tanks Germany, Slovakia, Portugal, British, the United States will send. We will destroy them all sooner or later and very quickly. Regis?
Well, Vladimir, I want to thank you again. It's always a pleasure, always an education to listen to you analyze what's been going on in not only this conflict, but in Russian foreign relations and the multipolar world that's emerging. Thank you again. We'll look forward to having you back very soon.
Yes, Regis, and I'm also very grateful to you and to any people who will watch this video recording, and for Regis for all your straightforward and very interesting questions. I'm always eager to respond them. They are so interesting that they inspire me to respond more and more and more without any interruption. Well, thank you very much indeed, my friend. Take care. God bless you and your family.